Good morning. My name is Diane Markel, and I am the worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. Whether this is your spiritual home or you are newly discovering this community, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. We come together to remember our kinship with one another and to hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the description in the live stream on YouTube, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and to be added to our email newsletter list. A few announcements. After worship, we will immediately begin check-in for our annual meeting, both online and in person. So if you are a voting member, please check in first, then enjoy kinship time. Get your snacks and then head back to these seats for our meeting. During kinship time, please try to greet someone you haven't met before. We are setting up for rummage sale today, immediately following the annual meeting. Yeah. Pizza will be served following the rummage sale setup. Join in the fun and help share the work. And if you're not able to get your donations in today, there will be another opportunity tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Because of the annual meeting, we will not have faith formation hour today, but nursery care is available in room 11 for ages 0 to 3 during the annual meeting, and child care for children older than 3 will be in room 9.
Good morning. Our opening reading is We Are Woven Together by Kathleen McTeague, UU minister and former director of the UU Service Committee College, College of Social Justice. She offered this prayer at a chapter meeting of the Interfaith Alliance. We gather today as a diverse body of people from many faiths and traditions. We do not speak the same language of worship. We follow different teachings made known to us by sacred voices and scriptures throughout the ages. We do not utter the same prayers, nor do we even use the same word, if any word at all, to speak the name of God. Nevertheless, we gather together in worship. In our gathering, we honor and celebrate our diversity. We do not seek a unity that would deny our differences. We seek rather a deeper union, a union woven through choice and intent, through time and attention, through respect and compassion, until we recognize that we have become a whole cloth, a cloth made rich and textured and vibrant through our differences. Each of us can hear in the beating of our own hearts the ancient rhythm of the loom at work. We are woven together. We are bound to one another. We belong to and with each other. Let us worship together.
Jesus spoke, entreating them to live world. Oligarchs, tyrants try to keep some in, everyone else outside. The revolution sweeps across the land, and the people all stand. The common folk cry, let everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Sometimes a circle is a class or a creed. Sometimes a circle is made of only man. Until Susan B. Anthony says, what about me? Let me in, let everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Sometimes a circle is a privileged thing, excluding people for the color of their skin. Till the voice of Martin Luther King says, let freedom ring, let down, let everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Gay and straight, rich and poor, old and broken, open up that door. The more we are, the greater we become. After all, we all are one. Bring in the people, but don't stop there. Bring in the fish in the sea, birds in the air. Bring in the rivers wide and mountains tall. We go together, or not at all. Let everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 to the circle, circle.
The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on the traditional homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwa, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. This land was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the U.S. government in 1829 and then sold to white settlers. After decades of violent encroachment by the French, British, and then U.S. American settlers, the Potawatomi community had no choice but to sell before they were forcefully removed west of the Mississippi River. The Chicagoland area is now home to one of the largest and most diverse urban Native communities in the U.S. Our faith calls us to name these realities with honor and respect as one small effort toward finding greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with contemporary indigenous communities, for the land which we use as sacred space for the animals and plants that have been sustained by this land, and for our ancestors and descendants who are and will become part of the earth. Chalice lighting. As Carla Williams and Cheryl Mounts light our chalice, symbol of our living tradition in memory of Carla's mom, Jean, please join in saying these words by Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all that is within each of us. Please rise in body and or spirit and join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before our hymn, please turn to one another, someone sitting near you, and perhaps someone you don't know well, and offer a greeting and welcome. If you're participating from home, please offer your greetings in the chat if you haven't already. And please remain uplifted as we sing hymn number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
Good morning. Today's Time for All Ages, excuse me, is called I Am You, a book about Ubuntu by Rifilo Moalali and illustrated by Zenelda McDonald. When I look into your eyes, I see myself. I am you. When I look into your eyes, I see your heart. I embrace you. When I look into your eyes, I see your beauty. I love you. And because I love you, I love myself too. When I smile as our eyes meet, when I hug you as I say hello, when I share what little I have with you, and when I walk home with you after school, I love you and I love myself too. When I listen as you tell me stories, when I dance as I see you dance, when I laugh as I hear you laugh, when I hold your hands as you cry, I love you and I love myself too. We may look different, you and I, sound different, act different, eat different food, and live in different places. But our hearts beat the same. I am you. To hurt you is to hurt myself. To tease you is to tease myself. To ignore you is to ignore myself. I am you. To care for you is to care for myself. To be gentle with you is to be gentle with myself. To be kind to you is to be kind to myself. I am you, and you are me. I am because we are one.
Each Sunday, we hold space for the joys and the sorrows of those gathered here, honoring our struggles and our triumphs, and the brokenness and the wholeness that is woven into the human experience. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like spoken aloud, you can enter it into the book at the back. You can fill in our form found on our website. You can put it into the chat. Hold on, I forgot my phone. Because I want to read those if you enter them into the chat, and I do my best. Or you can simply send me an email. Here's the joys and sorrows that have been shared today. This was actually shared by Gretchen Brewster last week, and I erroneously did not include it. Gretchen Brewster is joyous that her 2-year video about growing up in her hometown of Summit, New Jersey has been completed and distributed to her high school classmates, and the feedback has been so rewarding. And she offers a major concern that the essential right of reproductive health is about to be removed for many women. It is a time to protest and demand that such difficult decisions remain for each woman. And Gretchen is in Washington, D.C. She was there this weekend marching for this right. From Janelle Britton, also from last Sunday, which I missed, we are celebrating the 9 garden team members who communed with our 10 gardens around the church on May 7th, doing spring cleaning and planting so we can all enjoy and be inspired by our garden's beauty. Yes, they look lovely. And I have to add the lilacs. Oh, the lilacs. It is our way of saying, the garden team's way of saying that we love you and Mother Nature. And Doug Erickson shares a similar joy to gardeners, joy to the garden swap, and joy to the UCE staff for hosting, managing all the UCE activities with such excellence. Shout out to Liz Kennedy Eason, our sexton, for timely help, and the 17th annual Garden Swap 2022 was so enjoyable. From Martha Holman, our daughter Sarah had a beautiful baby boy on Friday. Yay. So happy for you all. As Sarah and John navigate the new joys of parenthood, Wayne and I are out here in Campbell, California, helping out. Today I got to hold Ezra for an hour at the hospital while the parents slept. What a delight. Janet Lipner shared that she is home from the hospital and feeling good, which is wonderful news. And Sue Yoakum shares concerns for Ricky, Finn's father, who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, if not something more serious. For Karen, Finn's mother, who is of course experiencing a great deal of stress from the diagnosis, and Finn, Sue's partner, who is undergoing medical testing for their issues. And Amelia Ickes writes, I graduate college this week. Over the past 4 years of, yes, congratulations. Over the past 4 years of living in Chicago, this congregation has been a joy and a comfort. Thank you all. We are so glad. And I just want to add my sorrow today for the evidence of ongoing violent racism that exists in the world, here in Evanston and in Buffalo, and I'm holding all those who are so deeply harmed. All of us are so deeply harmed by such racism. Sorry, almost forgot to add a joy from Tori Bassani. My daughter-in-law is here from Denver for the whole week to help with the rummage sale. Thank you. And I think that's all I got. This is the sacred space for our tender offerings, and it is part of the practice of beloved community. Together we expand our celebrations and we lessen the burden of our grief. You are invited now to come forward and light a candle in honor of a joy or a sorrow or a burden on your heart that you would like to let go of and have witnessed in this community. Please come forward now. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of love, infinite and intimate within us and among us and all around us. We are grateful for the space and for this time to rest in the knowing that we are not alone. We are not alone in our struggles or our sorrows or our joys and celebrations. Guide us in our living with intention. Guide us in our struggle and our striving to make the world whole. Show us the way to heal ourselves and each other. Help us to find joy and express gratitude for the many gifts that are abundant, even amidst the many tragedies. Through our hurt, may we find a way back to love and to possibility so that we can serve the highest good and the well-being of all. May it be so.
Children, kindergarten through 6th grade, are invited to attend Head, Heart, and hands in room 9 with Kathy. You are always welcome to stay here if you'd prefer. As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois, or UUPMI, equipping UUs in Illinois to transform institutions and support people harmed by the prison industrial complex. If you're joining us from home or in the building, you may text to give, mail in a check, or give from our website. If you write a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. If you're in the sanctuary, we have returned to passing the collection bowls down the aisles. Will the ushers please come forward? Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. Our reading is from Valerie Kaur, a civil rights activist, lawyer, and filmmaker, from her book, See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. It is easy to wonder about the internal life of the people closest to us. It is harder to wonder about people who seem like strangers or outsiders. But when we choose to wonder about people we don't know, when we imagine their lives and listen for their stories, we begin to expand the circles of those we see as part of us. The call to love beyond our own flesh and blood is ancient. It echoes down to us on the lips of indigenous leaders, spiritual teachers, and social reformers through the centuries. Guru Nanak called us to see no stranger. Buddha, to practice unending compassion. Abraham, to open our tent to all. Jesus, to love our neighbors. Muhammad, to take in the orphan. Mirabai, to love without limit. They all expanded the circle of who counts as one of us, and therefore who is worthy of our care and concern. These teachings were rooted in linguistic, cultural, and spiritual context of their time, but they spoke of a common vision of our interconnectedness and interdependence. It is the ancient Sanskrit truth that we can look upon anyone or anything and say, Tat Vam Asi. I am that. It is the African philosophy Ubuntu. I am because you are. It is the Mayan precept In La Cage. You are my other me.
Decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Love is gentle, love is kind. Love is the only answer in hard times. Hate solves nothing and brings us down. Love is the only thing that turns it round. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Of love, dream with your heart. When setting out in life, make love your start. When times are hard, love finds a way. Even when the word is hard to say, I great a burden to bear. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear.
I want to start by thanking Cheryl and Carla for purchasing this sermon at our auction in November. I hope I give you your money's worth. But truth be told, it sort of feels like I should be paying you. I mean, you paid to have lunch with me and tell me what you wanted me to preach about, but the pleasure of your company was all mine. And you supplied me with a wonderful sermon topic, which makes my job easier, really. But we all know it's for the good of the church. So thank you again for the delightful conversation and for the great sermon topic and for financially supporting UCE's mission. Cheryl and Carla wanted me to talk about the idea of tolerance. I thought this would be an easy one. There's a lot to say about tolerance. I struggle daily to be tolerant of lots of things: aggressive drivers, email scammers, Supreme Court justices, to name a few. Tolerance is worthy of our consideration because it is the bare minimum requirement for a life's journey toward building beloved community. But it's far from sufficient. When I was writing this sermon on Friday, I received a text from my friend and colleague, Pastor Michael Neighbors of Second Baptist. It was a picture of the nooses that were hanging from trees near Haven School. He was asking some of his colleagues to join him in solidarity against this act of hate. This morning, I woke to another text from Pastor Neighbors saying that the rally that was being planned for Monday evening would be larger now and moved from Haven to Fountain Square after the killing of 10 people in a racially motivated mass shooting in Buffalo. My heart is breaking for my friend, for our siblings in faith who are angry and hurt today, for all of us, as we buckle under the oppressive force of intolerance, racism, and hate. Our story this morning illustrated the South African concept of Ubuntu, I am because you are. It is a beautiful way of expressing interconnection. If we all held that belief that we are part of one another and part of a whole, that we truly and deeply need one another to survive, perhaps when we get cut off in traffic or when we're confronted with values that are diametrically opposed to ours, maybe we'd be better able to transform those moments of intolerance and anger into healing and learning. Maybe we'd be closer to creating the beloved community that we long for. But holding that view of oneness is really hard, day to day and moment to moment, especially amidst such violence and hate when there is so much that is polarizing and alienating. Creating the beloved community, the concept coined by philosopher and theologian Josiah Royce and popularized by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is a dream that King believed was achievable through the practice of nonviolence. The beloved community is not a place without conflict or challenge. It is a state of full inclusivity where each person is valued and everyone has what they need to thrive. King's dream was informed by Gandhi's teaching of ahimsa, or nonviolence, which he learned from his wife. As a child, Gandhi gained tolerance of others as he was surrounded by people of different faiths in his home. But he learned that tolerance, as an adult, he learned that it was not enough. The practice of ahimsa requires one to not only tolerate others, but to see them as yourself And Valerie Cower, in our opening reading, lists some of the many ways this wisdom has been passed down to recognize all others as a part of ourselves we do not yet know. As we strive to practice these philosophies of oneness, we might be tempted to skip over tolerance as too low a threshold, and it is true that tolerance is not nearly enough. Tolerance as a concept is problematic in that it is both passive and it privileges existing power structures. To tolerate someone or something presupposes that you are in a position to do so. Additionally, problematic is the truth that there are things towards which we must never be tolerant. Racism, injustice, and violence are not tolerable. And yet, without developing tolerance for difference, moving further along the journey toward ahimsa, Ubuntu, and beloved community is impossible. So let's start with tolerance. Our faith has a long history with the word. The Unitarian and Universalist branches of our tradition were born as heresies of tolerance. Our religious ancestors, known first as anti-Trinitarians, championed, or tried to champion, a tolerance of theological questions and doubts. And the early Universalists preached about universal salvation, that a loving God would tolerate all beliefs in heaven. These were not popular ideas for most of the last 2 millennia. However, a bold stroke for tolerance took place in 1568 when a legislative decree was issued and signed by the only Unitarian king in history, John Sigismund, in the Eastern Hungarian kingdom, now known as Romania. It was called the Edict of Torda. King Sigismund was recently converted to Unitarianism when he signed this edict after having converted from Catholicism to Lutheranism and then to Calvinism. King Sigismund was a searcher, as many of us are here. The edict read in part that, quote, faith is the gift of God, which hearing is by the word of God. Now, this may not seem very radical to our modern sensibilities, but in 1568, let me tell you, it was pretty radical. The decree said that each person could hear and interpret the word of God directly, rather than through the religion of the land or the dogma of the faith one was born into. The edict also affirmed, quote, that in every place the preachers shall preach and explain the gospel, each according to his understanding of it. They shall be permitted to keep a preacher whose teaching they approve. No one shall abuse the preachers. No one shall be reviled for his religion. And it is not permitted that anyone should threaten anyone else by imprisonment or by removal from his post for his teaching. Apologies for the gendered language. It was not accidental. And it was not meant to be all-inclusive. The edict does not go so far as to establish individual freedom to believe or to practice religion according to one's own conscience. It does, however, protect the rights of a congregation to choose their preacher and for the preacher to preach according to their faith without fear of being fired or killed, as long as they were either Catholic, Lutheran, Calvinist, or Unitarian. It's a narrow understanding of tolerance for sure, but still important. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that that seed of tolerance was planted, and I'm glad that our movement has been growing the understanding of tolerance ever since. For all its shortcomings, the Edict of Torda was revolutionary in that it allowed for different religions to live side by side with acceptance. That was new. But clearly, that level of tolerance is a far cry from the inclusivity we in this community are striving for today. While this congregation and many of our progressive religious neighbors strive to be radically welcoming and inclusive, the larger society is becoming more and more intolerant. People are moving away from political difference and toward political sameness. Red states are getting redder and blue states are getting bluer. It is simply not tolerable to live near someone who votes differently. And I can't help but think about the incredibly complex issue of reproductive rights within which there is a growing inability to hold any kind of nuance or open-hearted conversation. The possibility that each person should be able to determine with their family and healthcare provider whether or not to continue a pregnancy is squared off with the belief that life begins at conception and ending a life in the womb is murder, period. Without tolerance, there's no nuance, and the only result is extreme polarization. Either you're pro-abortion or you're pro-life. There is no tolerance of nuance or complexity amid such polarization, and no ability to imagine a way to cooperatively reduce unwanted pregnancies or better support life beyond the womb. Intolerance is the inability to hold complexity or nuance. It is the inability to process or take in new ideas or perspectives. Think of how we use the word intolerance in relationship to what we consume, as in gluten intolerance. When we can't digest something, we can't process it and turn it into usable energy, it's called intolerance. The same is true of our spiritual, emotional, and relational lives. An inability to process difference, hold nuance, or take in multiple perspectives is called intolerance. It is the byproduct of a need to oversimplify things in an increasingly complex world. Without the ability to take in new information and perspectives, there's no opportunity to change and grow. To move beyond tolerance, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable and to be transformed. Yet I don't want to confuse tolerance for weakness of will. I don't want to convey that practicing nonviolence means we don't resist injustice, that we roll over and tolerate intolerable threats to our lives and values of liberation, love, and justice. In the work of living our values, which should not be watered down or equivocated, we need not tolerate values or beliefs that are in direct conflict with ours. But we can practice compassion and nonviolence towards all people, even those who hold those irreconcilable values and beliefs. Ahimsa, or nonviolence, means working to understand our oneness, to recognize everyone's value, worth, and dignity, even while actively and peacefully resisting certain beliefs and harmful actions. Even within this congregation, even as we hold similar values and are working toward a common mission of nurturing the human spirit for a world made whole, we can recognize lots of different ways of moving within that mission, lots of ways of trying to get there, and many different places that people are along the path. Author and activist Adrienne Marie Brown, in her book, We Will Not Cancel Us, and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice, talks about the prevalence in this atmosphere of intolerance of call-out and cancel culture, which takes down flawed humans who make mistakes or fail to live up to expectations within movements for justice. She speaks about a vision of transformative justice rather than restorative justice. We are not just restoring what was, because we cannot go back and undo harm, but we can work to transform harm into healing. She urges those of us who are or aspire to be activists for justice and liberation to not succumb to call out or cancel culture. Instead, we can learn to lean into complexity with curiosity, to recognize the possibilities of mutuality and mutual empowerment, and to strive to recognize the woundedness of all of us so that we can collectively heal. When our service concludes, we will begin our annual meeting, during which we'll conduct important business of the congregation, including voting on 2 proposals, one on supporting reparations locally and nationally, which I hope that we'll approve, and the other on our values statements. There are 4 values statements to replace our current ends, and the first one reads this: "We practice beloved community by welcoming, affirming, and promoting the worth and dignity of people of all ages, abilities, backgrounds, cultures, and identities within, among, and beyond our physical and virtual spaces." This is a vision of who we want to be and the community we are actively working to build. For many years, this congregation has practiced radical hospitality, which is a concept shared by Father Daniel Homan and Lonnie Collins Pratt in their book of that title. And it means to welcome the stranger as a part of yourself that you do not know. Radical hospitality is an aspiration far beyond mere tolerance of others who are perceived as different. It is owned by all of us here, and each of us has an active role to play, to greet those that you don't know, to say hello, to introduce yourself and include newcomers in your conversations rather than seeking out only those that you are comfortable with on Sunday mornings. And still, radical hospitality isn't the end of the journey or the ultimate goal. It also isn't enough. So what's beyond radical hospitality? It could be what C.B. Beale calls preemptive radical inclusion. A mouthful, right? A few of us attended the recent Regional Assembly in April and had the privilege of hearing the keynote by C.B. Beale, who is a Unitarian Universalist religious educator and consultant. C.B. shared their concept of preemptive radical inclusion, which goes further than radical hospitality and way beyond tolerance. It's more than making someone feel welcome. It's considering what needs might be present among us and how to meet those needs even before being asked. In C.B.'s words, preemptive radical inclusion means that as leaders, we intentionally position ourselves to presuppose that everyone is always already in the room. We don't wait for an individual to have to tell us their personal private business, what they need, and then meet those needs. We can reasonably imagine what the sorts of needs are, and then we can create experience that preemptively involve those people. Preemptive radical inclusion is about looking for the potential barriers that might exist and lowering them. It's about making sure all people, or as many as possible, who might find a home among us, feel that they have been considered and acknowledged, that they belong and can be fully contributing members of our community. This is what we are working toward, beloveds. We are striving to create community that centers the needs of those who experience exclusion and marginalization in most other spaces. We are striving to be that community that radically and faithfully considers who might already be among us and who might be searching for a community like ours and what their needs might be, so that we can together build the world we dream about. We have a long way to go. The journey begins with imagining the possibility. What's required of us to make these possibilities real is a willingness to listen and to be open to change and being changed. My friends, intolerance, vitriol, and hate are everywhere, including here in our community. As we struggle to live our mission and values amidst it all, we face terrible odds. We may buckle, but we will not break if we remember that we are one. We need one another, all of those who would join in resistance to intolerance, to be united in love and covenant. I hope that you will join me tomorrow evening in Fountain Square to side with love and oppose hate. I will give you more details as soon as I know them. Join me to demonstrate knowing that I am because you are. Together, may we practice intolerance. Together, may we practice tolerance of others while remaining intolerant of hate. May we then continue along the journey beyond tolerance toward Ubuntu and ahimsa, seeing no stranger and practicing preemptive radical inclusion. May we continue in shared faith to build the beloved community. Amen.
Thank you. As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again. Please rise in body and or spirit and join in singing hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle.
As a reminder, just before our benediction, please check in for the annual meeting before grabbing your snacks and enjoying kinship. When you're going to get snacks, please go through that hallway by the door and around this way, just for ease of flow. And we'll get started with our annual meeting as soon as we can. May we move forward with the practice of so much more than tolerance. May we move forward knowing our oneness, that you are a part of me I do not yet know, that I am because you are, that the beloved community is possible if we are willing to work to make it real. Let us move forward with the work of creating it together. Go making peace, beloveds.